Right here, you already know this isn't just a noise complaint. This is a power test. A billionaire versus a courtroom. And when someone openly says money talks louder than law, the real question becomes...
The richest man to ever stand in my courtroom looked me dead in the eye and declared that money talks louder than law. That Friday morning, billionaire real estate mogul Richard Blackstone discovered that in Providence Municipal Court, justice has the final word. It began with a simple noise complaint that should have been resolved with a phone call. Blackstone owns the old Paramount Theater downtown, been renovating it for months without proper permits, working crews around the clock 7 days a week. The construction noise is driving the entire neighborhood insane. Jackhammers at 5 a.m., concrete trucks rumbling through residential streets, workers shouting over machinery until midnight. Mrs. Catherine Murphy, 74 years old, a widow living on Social Security, lives in the apartment building right next to the construction site. She's been calling the city for weeks, begging them to enforce the noise ordinances, the permitted hours, the basic regulations that protect neighborhoods from exactly this kind of disruption. But every time city inspectors show up, they get the same story from Blackstone's site supervisor. Mr. Blackstone has special permits for extended hours. Take it up with City Hall. Special permits that don't exist. Extended hours that were never approved. Construction schedules that violate every noise ordinance Providence has on the books. But Blackstone figures his money and political connections make regulations optional. Finally, Mrs. Murphy has had enough. She calls the police at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, when the construction noise is so loud she can't sleep, can't hear her television, can't live in peace in her own home. Officer Davis responds and finds crews operating heavy machinery in clear violation of city noise ordinances. When Officer Davis tells the site supervisor to shut down operations until morning, the supervisor makes a phone call. 5 minutes later, Richard Blackstone himself shows up, furious that anyone would dare interfere with his project. Officer Blackstone says, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Richard Blackstone. I own this project. I employ half the construction workers in this city, and I don't have time for noise complaints from people who should be grateful for the economic development I'm bringing to this neighborhood. Grateful for the economic development. Like Mrs. Murphy should thank him for destroying her quality of life." "Sir," Officer Davis replies, "you're operating heavy machinery outside permitted hours. The noise ordinance clearly prohibits construction work between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. "Officer Davis," Blackstone says, reading his nameplate like he's memorizing it, "let me explain how things work in the real world. This project is worth $50 million. It's creating hundreds of jobs. It's revitalizing downtown Providence. A few weeks of temporary inconvenience is a small price for that kind of progress." Temporary inconvenience. 3 months of round-the-clock noise that's making Mrs. Murphy's life miserable is temporary inconvenience. "Sir," Officer Davis continues, "regardless of the project's value, you need to follow city noise regulations." That's when Blackstone shows his true nature. "Officer, I think you're confused about priorities here. Money talks louder than law in this city. My project brings tax revenue, creates employment, and attracts investment. Your noise ordinances cost money and slow progress. Which do you think the mayor cares more about?" Officer Davis writes him the citation anyway, because that's what honest cops do when wealthy people think their money exempts them from following the rules everyone else has to obey. But Blackstone isn't finished. The next morning, he calls Mayor Hendricks directly, demanding the citation be voided and Officer Davis be disciplined for harassment of legitimate business operations. "Mr. Mayor," Blackstone says, "I've invested $50 million in this city's downtown revitalization. I employ 300 people on this project alone. I think a police officer Writing me citations for noise violations shows a serious misunderstanding of economic priorities. Mayor Hendricks, to his credit, explains that noise ordinances exist for a reason and that economic development doesn't exempt anyone from following basic regulations. That's when Blackstone makes his threat. Mr. Mayor, Blackstone says, I can build this project in any city on the East Coast. Providence gets my investment because I chose to invest here. But if your police department is going to harass my operations with frivolous regulations, maybe Hartford or New Haven would be more business-friendly. Direct extortion. Using economic leverage to pressure public officials into ignoring law violations. But Mayor Hendricks forwards the complaint to me for judicial review instead of caving to threats. So there I am, Thursday morning, reviewing Blackstone's case file over my coffee. Noise ordinance violations, operating without permits, threats against public officials. But the case file reveals something much more disturbing than construction noise. Investigation shows that Blackstone has been systematically ignoring city regulations for months. No permits for extended hours, no environmental impact studies, no traffic management plans for his heavy equipment. He's been operating as if city ordinances don't apply to billionaires with development projects. More troubling, city records show this isn't Blackstone's first time buying his way around regulations. Over the past 5 years, he's made substantial donations to city council members, the mayor's re-election fund, and various civic organizations right before major development approvals. Legal donations, but the timing suggests a pattern of using wealth to influence policy decisions. Friday morning, 9:30 a.m., Richard Blackstone walks into my courtroom like he's entering a boardroom where he's buying the company. $1,000 suit, gold watch, that supreme confidence of someone who's used to making problems disappear with his checkbook. His lawyer follows, not just any attorney, but the most expensive legal talent money can buy. Richard Blackstone, Christina calls. Multiple noise ordinance violations, operating without proper permits, threatening public officials. Up he walks, and immediately I can see he considers this a business transaction, not a legal proceeding. Not humbled like someone who violated community standards, not respectful.
Cost everyone likes to skip past. Noise ordinances aren't red tape, they're quality of life laws. For someone like Mrs. Murphy, this isn't an inconvenience. It's sleep, health, dignity. And once you frame it that way, this case stops being business versus regulation and becomes decency versus entitlement.
Like a citizen facing judicial review, just calculating, like he's figuring out what this inconvenience will cost them. Mr. Blackstone, I begin, looking at his extensive case file. You're here because you've been operating construction crews outside permitted hours, disturbing an entire neighborhood, and threatening public officials when cited for violations. Do you understand these charges? Your Honor, he says, with that smooth confidence that billionaires perfect when dealing with people they consider employees. I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature and importance of my downtown development project. Fundamental misunderstanding. Like, community welfare is too complex for judges to comprehend. What kind of misunderstanding, Mr. Blackstone? Well, Your Honor, he says, adjusting his expensive watch, I don't think city officials fully appreciate the economic impact and urgency of major development projects like mine. Mr. Blackstone, do you understand that noise ordinances exist to protect residents' quality of life? I understand that regulations exist, Your Honor, but I also understand that economic development sometimes requires flexibility in how those regulations are applied. Flexibility. Mr. Blackstone, what gives you the right to operate heavy machinery at 2 a.m. in a residential neighborhood? Your Honor, major construction projects operate on tight schedules with significant financial implications. Delays cost money, and money costs jobs. What about Mrs. Murphy's right to sleep in her own home? Your Honor, he says, and I can hear the condescension starting to creep in. Mrs. Murphy will benefit enormously from the economic development this project brings to her neighborhood. How will she benefit from being kept awake all night? She'll benefit from increased property values, improved neighborhood amenities, and the general economic growth that major development projects create. Increased property values. Like Mrs. Murphy, living on Social Security, cares more about theoretical future benefits than being able to sweep tonight. Mr. Blackstone, I continue, did you tell Officer Davis that money talks louder than law? Pause. His expensive lawyer whispers something, probably telling him to be careful. Your Honor, I may have tried to help Officer Davis understand the economic realities of major development projects. By telling him money matters more than law? By explaining that successful cities balance regulation with economic development priorities. Mr. Blackstone, according to Officer Davis's report, you said specifically that money talks louder than law in this city. Did you say that? Another pause, longer this time. Your Honor, I may have used colorful language to emphasize the importance of economic development to community prosperity. Colorful language. Mr. Blackstone, do you believe your wealth exempts you from following city ordinances? I believe that major investors who bring significant economic benefits to communities should receive reasonable consideration when regulations conflict with job creation and economic growth. Reasonable consideration, like being allowed to violate noise ordinances, like having flexibility in project schedules that create hundreds of jobs and millions in tax revenue. At the expense of residents' basic quality of life? Your Honor, he says, and now the real Blackstone is starting to show. With all due respect, I don't think municipal court judges fully understand the complexities of major economic development. Don't understand the complexities. This billionaire just told a judge that wealth makes you smarter about legal priorities. Mr. Blackstone, I say, standing up from my bench, help me understand these complexities. Economic development requires speed and efficiency, Your Honor. Delays cost money, and money represents jobs, tax revenue, and community prosperity. Minor inconveniences like temporary noise are small prices for major economic benefits. Minor inconveniences like keeping elderly residents awake all night? Temporary disruptions that lead to permanent improvements in neighborhood economic vitality. Mr. Blackstone, I continue, you threatened to take your project to another city if Providence enforced its noise ordinances. Was that a threat? That was a statement of economic reality, Your Honor. Capital is mobile, and investors have choices about where to deploy resources. So you were threatening economic retaliation against the city. I was explaining that business-friendly policies attract investment, while excessive regulation drives it away. Mr. Blackstone, threatening public officials is a crime, regardless of how you phrase it. Your Honor, he says, his voice getting sharper, I think you're mischaracterizing legitimate business communications as threats. Mr. Blackstone, you told the mayor that your police department was, quote, harassing legitimate business operations with, quote, frivolous regulations. How was enforcing noise ordinances frivolous? Because the economic benefits of my project far outweigh the temporary inconvenience of construction noise.
Quick legal breakdown. City noise ordinances are strict liability regulations. That means intent doesn't matter. Project value doesn't matter. Job numbers don't matter.
Who decides that cost-benefit analysis? Your Honor, he says, and I can hear the frustration building. People who understand economics and development decide that, not municipal court judges dealing with neighborhood complaints. Not municipal court judges. This billionaire thinks judicial authority is inferior to economic power. Mr. Blackstone, I say, you seem to believe that wealth gives you the right to ignore laws that apply to everyone else. I believe that major economic contributors to community prosperity deserve consideration that reflects their importance to overall civic welfare. More consideration than the people who actually live in the community. Consideration that recognizes economic realities versus minor residential preferences. Minor residential preferences. Like sleeping through the night is some kind of luxury demand. Mr. Blackstone, I continue, let me ask you something simple. Should noise ordinances apply equally to all construction projects? They should apply in ways that balance community welfare with economic development priorities. Should wealthy developers get exemptions that other contractors don't get? They should get consideration that reflects their proportional contribution to community prosperity. This billionaire actually believes that wealth should buy different treatment under the law. Mr. Blackstone, I say, you told Officer Davis that money talks louder than law. Explain what you meant. I meant that economic development creates the tax base that funds police departments, schools, and city services. Without investment and job creation, communities can't afford the public services that regulations are supposed to protect. So economic power should override legal authority? So economic reality should inform how legal authority is exercised. Mr. Blackstone, are you saying judges should consider defendants' wealth when making legal decisions? I'm saying judges should consider economic impact when balancing community interests. The community interest in this case is Mrs. Murphy's right to peace in her own home. The community interest is economic development that benefits everyone, including Mrs. Murphy. That's when I decide to show this billionaire what real power looks like. Mr. Blackstone, I'm going to let justice speak louder than money. I sentence him to the maximum fines allowed by law. $1,000 for each noise violation across multiple nights, totaling $8,000. I order immediate cessation of all construction outside permitted hours. I require him to personally apologize to every resident affected by his violations, but most importantly, I place his entire project under court supervision with daily compliance monitoring until completion. Furthermore, I continue, any future violations will result in project shutdown and criminal contempt charges. Blackstone's face goes red. Your Honor, this is economic sabotage. You're destroying a $50 million project over noise complaints. Mr. Blackstone, I'm enforcing the same laws that apply to every contractor in this city. This is insane. You're prioritizing one elderly woman's comfort over hundreds of jobs and millions in economic development. Mr. Blackstone, I'm prioritizing equal justice under law over wealth-based exemptions. I'll appeal this. I'll take this to federal court. You don't have the authority to micromanage legitimate business operations. Mr. Blackstone, I say, as he continues his tantrum, money may talk in your world, but in my courtroom, justice has the last word. 3 months later, Blackstone completed this project on schedule, following all noise ordinances with daily compliance monitoring. Mrs. Murphy got peaceful nights, and Blackstone learned that wealth doesn't buy legal immunity. A year after completion, Blackstone sent me an unexpected letter. Judge Caprio, I want to thank you for teaching me that community respect can't be purchased. Following proper procedures actually improved my project timeline and community relations. You were right that justice speaks louder than money. The completed theater became a community asset that both brought economic development and respected neighborhood quality of life. Blackstone learned that wealth brings responsibility to the community, not authority over it. My father always said, Frank, money is a tool, not a master. The moment you think wealth makes you better than other people, you become worse than everyone. Richard Blackstone learned that lesson through court supervision and the hard truth that democracy means equal treatment under law. I'm Frank Caprio. Remember, in America, justice speaks loudest of all. No amount of money can silence that voice. Thanks for listening, and God bless.